All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for doing this, Bree. I'm really excited to finally get this interview going. I know we had talked before the holidays and got to know each other a little bit, and really excited to kind of just share our journeys and discuss what we've learned and have everything that you've gone through kind of just out in the open and discussed. And yeah, Christmas and New Year's certainly came and went, and here we are. So I'm really excited. I really appreciate you taking the time out to do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is my first interview and probably the most thorough that I'm ever going to tell somebody about like my journey. So hopefully not the last, but I'm excited.
Yeah, well, we only have 45 seconds left, so I'll be quick.
I'll just put up like a PDF so you guys see
Yeah,
all this text. There you go. Just read it.
started here, worked hard, lost weight. Have a good day.
Yeah.
So why don't we start with just kind of an introduction to your story? Tell us, just first and foremost, who are you, um, and just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, my name is Bree. I am 31, almost 32. I have just lost 50 pounds in 2023. But that was not my first rodeo. Unfortunately, I hope it's my last rodeo, but I've actually like gained and lost weight several times in my life. I grew up pretty sporty, so I wasn't like overly like overweight. I was a little bit chubby though. But I learned poor eating habits in my household. My whole family has bad eating habits. The typical, SAD. I think you were telling me about SAD, standard American diet. And so I carried those on for a little bit when I went on my own into college. But then I eventually had an epiphany that I needed to do something about my health. So it has been kind of on or off over the years. And so I'm still learning how to keep it on and how to keep it on in a way that doesn't feel miserable or that my diet and food is always top of mind because that gets exhausting when you obsess over it. But I feel like I'm getting to a place now, maybe with age as well, that I'm figuring out how to make this feel very normal.
Yeah, I think that's awesome the way you put it, kind of trying to incorporate it in a way where it's not constantly top of mind. Because I think that's what a lot of people struggle with is one, how do I get started? But more importantly, how do I continue the process? And there's two things, at least in my experience over time, because like as same as you, it's not my first rodeo, that tend to kind of deter us from getting on track. Um, One is just the lack of discipline and follow through, and then two, overdoing it. So the complete opposite direction, just burnout, where it is top of mind constantly, and you're tracking calories. And oh, I missed a workout, and then so when you get a break, you overindulge and just I'll just take a week off, and then you slowly don't end up going back to it.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like we'll probably talk about this, but I think that's so key is that how do you incorporate a healthy lifestyle so that it's not, I don't even want to say that it's not obvious, but that it's not so much of your conscious mind going into it. And I think like it takes time. I think that can look different for every person. I think there are some commonalities that can apply for most people. But yeah, I mean, who wants to be mentally exhausted thinking about their body, their food, what to do, what not to do all the time? And I think there's a period where you do probably have to have that very conscious effort, but then it's about how do you seamlessly make some of those things subconscious that you can
Right.
continue on. And I think part of it is like you don't want to make your journey miserable because you don't want misery to like be your new norm. So I think it's tough because a lot of people like to start a weight loss journey or fitness journey with like a rigorous challenge. Like I know 75 hard, 75 soft. I have nothing against that. I've never done that, but that can be a little bit extreme for people. And maybe for some people they can do that and then transition to something very normal. And some people might have a hard time doing that. So I think like different people respond to different types of starts, but ultimately long term we all need to learn how to live with like some resemblance of a healthy lifestyle every day.
Yeah. I think it goes back to just the longevity and lifestyle of it all. Some of the challenges you just mentioned are great. And those are something I've found more interesting once I've been on a fitness journey. Now that I've kind of incorporated in my lifestyle, some of those things seem enticing as just a fun means of a continued journey versus a way to kickstart it. Like, for example, I saw you signed up to do the Spartan race. Very
Yes,
nice. Now, I
yes,
don't know
yes.
that that would be something when you're like, I'm going to lose weight, that you sign up for that. Because that hanging over your head is a little daunting. Uh,
Yes.
so, yeah, I think going back to the basics is just so important for so many people and finding out what those basics are. And they're not necessarily easy, but they are basic. There's so many things one can do when getting started or trying to sustain a journey that are just fundamental. And as long as you stick to those fundamentals, you're going to see results because it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen instantaneously. And really, I think one of the most important things overall, and I could be jumping ahead here, but it's just top of mind, is when you're being consistent, you realize that fitness, whether it's working out or eating right, is a kind of collective uh, effort, if you will. For example, people, if you micromanage your calories in a single day, day by day, it gets challenging, it gets convoluted. Where if you look at kind of your weekly caloric intake, it starts to make a lot more sense. You don't have to micromanage every moment. Keep in mind, oh wow, I had kind of had a larger meal tonight. I might have gone over. If you're working out anyways, you probably need a little bit of a surplus if you're trying to build muscle. Just take that into account the next day, the rest of the week. Make it kind of an ebb and flow than a strict isolated up and down. And it's the same thing with fitness. You're going to burn out. If you miss a day due to whatever, just make sure you don't miss a second day.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like that concept of looking at it from more of a weekly perspective because one of the things I've shared before on my Instagram is one of the ways that I like to be in a caloric deficit or that I use as a tool to stay because I don't count calories. I've
Right.
counted calories off and on for years before. Like I would use my Fitness Pal or there's this other calorie count app. I did start that way this go around for maybe a month to kind of remind myself what X amount of calories looks like. Because I think I was so used to eating whatever that I'm like, oh, wow, like this is 1500 or this is 1600 or whatever. So after I adjusted, I did come off of it. So what I did for most of the 50 pounds I lost is I was in obviously a caloric deficit. That's what you need to do to lose weight without even like counting. And I do think that was one of the first times I've had that much success long term doing that without actually tracking. And so what I would do rather than track, because that was part of what made it feel a little miserable before, is that like I don't want to track my calories forever, like whether it's calories, points, I don't want to do that forever. And so like how can I just pick habits that happen to lead me into a caloric deficit so I don't have to track, I just have to do those habits. So one of those habits was trying to think, okay, what is a good way that I can reduce calories at a meal that doesn't have to be calorie dense? Because whether I'm short on time, whether I'm on the go. So for me, that was breakfast. And so for breakfast, maybe before this journey, especially when I was like working from home every day, I would make a breakfast. I would sometimes have like meat and cheese, like charcuterie, girl breakfast, if you will, but very calorically dense. So I'm like, okay, this is a way for me to change. I do protein coffees, okay, and so that as it implies, it's coffee with a protein shake. Now, the how to tie this back to the whole weekly thing is that I do that like 4 days a week. Mostly on the days I have to commute because I come home from the gym, I have 30 minutes to get out the door, and so that's a really quick way rather than having something that's like very sugary, like let's say a pastry, of course, or like even a granola bar can be like more sugar and carbs than I would want at that time, and I want to start front loading my protein. But I bring that up because I only do that a few days a week. I don't do that every single day. And so on other days, like this morning, I had toast and turkey sausage with jam. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that I don't have to do such an extreme thing or such a light breakfast every day for the results to kind of compound. So it's kind of like a, okay, I'm doing some of these like tips and tricks most of the time. And then sometimes I am going to have a normal breakfast if I have time to cook or if I'm hungrier than normal. So anyway, a long way to say that I agree with that snapshot.
No, I think you've encapsulated it perfectly, and giving those examples are relevant and important to kind of gauge the looseness you can have, right? And it is a double-edged sword because you don't want to be so loosey-goosey. You don't know what you're eating, right? You don't know what you're putting into your body, but the overall idea goes back to what you just said about compounding it, right? The way you eat, the way you exercise, as long as you're doing a little bit, I really think it starts to compound because you get into the habit, as you mentioned earlier, developing those habits then lead to long-term success because it's not a grind, it's a subconscious aspect of getting healthier, and just doing a couple basic things. I know people are so concerned about what to eat, how to eat it, what not to eat. As you said, caloric deficit. And that doesn't mean if you're supposed to be eating 2,000 calories to be at your norm, you should cut down 1,000 calories. You want to kind of stay within 300 to 400 calories less. And without having to track, a couple ways to incorporate it that I've at least personally found is if you just up your protein, eliminate sugar, and then just processed foods in general, you're gonna significantly increase your body's ability to burn fat as an actual fuel source, and you're going to incorporate so many other aspects of feeling better. There was a study actually I was just reading that came out of Brazil, and it was a long-term study to. Long story short, I won't get into all the details, but one of the basic things that they came to a conclusion on was that if we cut back our amount of ultra processed foods to even the amount that it was a decade ago, I'm not saying cut it out completely, but just the amount of ultra processed foods in your diet to a decade ago, we would reduce the related unnatural deaths related to that by 21%. And that's crazy because 73% of the US food supply is ultra processed. 73%. So if you think
Wow.
of all like the seed oils, all the crap, and it just comes back to that sounds like a lot. I know I'm dumping info, but if you just do what you're saying, cut back on some of the, processed crap, keep in mind what you're eating, have your protein, focus on the basics, and you're gonna have a significantly positive outcome.
Yes. Yes, and I think like along those lines, because I think about the whole processed food thing too, because some of the things, I would say a number of things that I eat regularly are like probably processed or like they are processed. Like they come in a
Yeah.
label, like protein bars. So it's like, okay, like, so sometimes I find myself trying to pick a lane. Like, okay, do I want to do only whole foods or 80% of my diet is whole foods, which it probably is close to that, or do I just want to care about calories and not care about like where they're from? Because a lot of these like, low calorie, low sugar things are obviously pumped with processed stuff to make them taste good still but be lower. And so it's like, okay, do I need to or should I pick a lane or not? But I think ultimately, to like your point, I think these like overarching themes really apply to like people that typically like 80% or whatever of their diet are those processed foods. And I think a lot of people that overly eat processed foods are usually not overeating low calorie processed foods. They're probably eating high calorie processed foods, which is kind of leading to even more of the issue. Um, but yeah, that's super interesting. Even just a decade ago, because
Yeah.
I would have thought that it wasn't that different a decade ago to make a difference.
Same.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean between that and I think to what you just said too about a lot of the people that are eating predominantly processed foods, it does become an addiction because then a lot of that is loaded with sugar, and then so you're eating not only processed foods but a significant amount of sugar and carbs, unhealthy carbs that is, and you just it all compounds in the same way that good habits and fitness and eating somewhat healthy compound, not taking care of yourself compounds just as much. Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I when you were using the word compound so effectively, it reminds me a lot of finance. And I think there's so much overlap between like finance principles, and I work in finance, so I think about this a lot, but finance principles and then also health. But yeah, I mean, compounding is either for you or against you in a lot of ways. So you want it to
Always.
work for
I love that comparison. I've used that before myself because it's such an easy parallel, right? If you invest and you're getting returns and then you reinvest, that money grows. More money creates more growth. And it's the same thing when it comes to habits and fitness and eating. And having said that, with all of these ideas in mind, what would you say was a turning point for you? And I know this isn't your first rodeo, so, but at least from our conversations we've had, and I can relate, there's something very different and I think permanent about the more recent change that we've both gone through. Um, what was the moment, and if not a single moment, what are some of the things that, again, I'm going to overuse this, compounded to make you settle into this new lifestyle?
Yeah, I do agree. It probably wasn't like one single moment, and I even try to think back about what really kick started me in this instance. I think like seeing some pictures of myself around my birthday last year was like, oh, okay, I really should be serious about this. But I think, and I've talked about this online as well briefly, the health of my entire immediate family. So my only sibling, my brother, and my parents, realizing that they all have health conditions, diabetes, and my brother, who has had diabetes for several years, we're not very far apart in age. So I think that kind of hit home. There was like sort of a retroactive, like, oh my God, sort of thing. So I go to the doctor pretty regularly just to do like physicals and blood work. And typically, if your blood work comes back, normal in the normal ranges, your doctor doesn't say anything to you, right? So I went to the doctor this year after I'd already been on my health journey. So my numbers were like, even they were improved. But she told me, oh, so when you had blood work done last year, you were almost pre diabetic. And I went back to look at the results, and I was 0.1% away from being in the pre diabetic.
Wow.
Right. And it's kind of like, and I think for me, like, we see a lot of there's a whole spectrum of how overweight you could be. And I was undoubtedly overweight, but I didn't see myself as being that overweight to almost have diabetes or pre-diabetes. So I like to say I was pre-diabetes. Make it cute, make something very serious, very cute.
Right.
But I think like I wish I would have paid more attention to that when I got the results initially, but everything was normal, so I didn't really pay much attention. But I think like that just goes to show that the the impact that my decisions had in such a short amount of time. So, and I think ultimately, like, I know in media right now, and I think rightfully so, there's less of an emphasis on how you look and what your exact weight is, and more about maybe your performance and how you feel. And so, I really do like that concept. And so I think because of those things as well, like the health component is even more top of mind for me. So
I
probably.
wholeheartedly agree, especially when you were talking about family, because it's people you care about, right? And oftentimes you can think you're eating healthy. You can think, I remember when I was heavy, I knew I needed to make a change, but I also didn't think I was in as bad a place as I was until I started putting in the effort and noticing not just the physical changes, but to what you just said, how I felt, right? My sleep, the inflammation in my whole body, just my overall mood, right? The ability to interact with everyone, the brain fog. It's all stuff that you don't realize is there until you start eliminating it. And the same way that you care about your family, I think putting in that effort in the way we've done is a way to be there for your family too, because you can't help anyone else until you help yourself. And I can tell you, just at least from speaking for myself, the fitness out aside, everything in my life improved once I started taking care of myself. And, you know, I think of all these people that have diabetes. I have close loved ones that have passed away from diabetes. And it's as simple as, doing something. You don't have to jump in head first and overdo it. Um, eh, Speaking of, there's a couple other studies. I've been just a study hog lately. I've been reading so many different studies because they're not, it's not sexy, if you will, some of the data that comes out. So it's not so widely shared in the news. But um, there was a 30-year study that was done that essentially concluded if you did moderate exercise, 150 to 300 minutes a week, so you're looking at 2 to 3 hours. If you work out 2 to 3 hours a week, you can it increase all cause mortality by 22 to 31%. All cause. So literally just working out twice a week moderately can literally save your life. And the more you do, the more those results go up. Tie that back into the study I mentioned earlier with the ultra processed foods, or another Harvard study they just did recently. I think it was 2019 that they did a study on people doing the carnivore diet, which was
Mm.
it's a good way of eliminating a lot of stuff, right? That might not be sustainable long term, but you really do cut out a lot of the oxalates and crap that are in certain like leafy greens. But long story short, it cut out processed foods and sugars. And 100% of the diabetics in the study that had injectable insulins came off injectables. 100%. 92% of the diabetics who weren't on injectables uh, came off of insulin completely.
Wow.
92%.
Because of the sugar elimination and
Yep.
carbs. Yeah.
Just eating meat, getting healthy fats from animal products, and eliminating the crap. I think it's more an elimination aspect than anything else. Anyways, in the beginning of this, you said, "Let me know if I'm ranting," and here I am going, "Hi, yeah, 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 yeah."
Well, the actually, I admire that you read so many studies because that's kind of like the source of like facts. Because a lot of people will throw out like, well, if you do this and this will happen, but they don't always know where that information is coming from. They're like getting it secondhand, but you're kind of getting your info from the source. So I think that's a really healthy habit you have.
I appreciate it so much more that I've done it more, and reading. This is important. The study itself, because it's very easy for an outlet, a news source, or even just a blogger to take a study and kind of put their spin on it or explain what they think they understand about it. So reading the study itself and just getting the data and seeing how they did the study, because again, if you want to go back to another study, a lot of the studies in years past, because we've always heard meat's bad, right? You don't want to do too much meat. Um, that comes from a lot of epidemiological studies where they didn't isolate the meat. What they did was they asked a ton of people a broad spectrum of questions, right? Uh, how often do you go outside? Do you eat meat? Do you like this? Do you like that? And a lot of the people that said they eat a lot of meat had higher um, correlation to heart disease. But what they didn't do was say what's all the other shit they're eating. Are they eating a
Yeah,
lot of meat because they're eating hamburgers and fries every day and drinking milkshakes?
right.
So the data is just so skewed in that. So I'm really enjoying kind of the hyper focus on specific studies, whether it's in fitness, how we eat, um, especially when it's like everything that's fed to us. Um, is typically wrong when it's not just straight out of a study, like the old food pyramid. Are you
Oh,
kidding
yeah.
me? The bottom is just all carbs. Get most of
Right.
your nutrition from breads and pastas. Like, what?
I forgot about that, that the bottom of the pyramid was carbs. Very interesting. Well, yeah. I mean, so the question you were asking me about like turning point, like another sort of mindset shift. This is very particular to me, but I'm sure people could relate potentially. Is I realized that the only real problem that I had recurringly in my life was my weight. And the reason that matters for me, and I've mentioned before, that I do believe that you have similar traits and habits outside of fitness as you can apply to fitness. And I wasn't doing that. I was, doing well, like meeting all the goals that I had set for myself outside of fitness, and really just had my life together, have my life together. But somehow fitness, like I can't figure out how to control my weight. And so it was almost like a semi identity crisis in a way of like, why is there such a breakdown in this one area? Clearly, I have skills. Clearly, I have things that I can do. I've been able to um, from like I've been reading this book Atomic Habits, which everyone I think has like heard of. I've heard about Atomic Habits so much I thought I'd already read it until I realized that I until I got it. I was like, I don't think I've read this. But I think one of the pieces that stuck with me is the ability to delay gratification is an important component of people that tend to be more successful. And I have been able to do that in areas of my life, but I wasn't applying that well to food. And so it made me realize, okay, like I have it in me. Like it was motivating because I have these skills in me. I just have to figure out how to connect these like, joints from outside of fitness into my fitness life. And I think that's really motivating. So I think like if you already have self-confidence in yourself, which I hope everyone does to some degree, you really do have it in you, especially. And I think like you can almost like reverse this thought. Like if you feel like you are having difficulty applying yourself in fitness, well, maybe look at the other areas of your life. Are you applying yourself and doing things that you have to be doing outside of that, right? Whether it's family related, whether it's chores or projects or things around the home. Because how are you all of a sudden going to be this person that does the things you have to do in fitness and apply yourself and have discipline, but you don't do that in your other areas of life, right? So I think for me, once I realized that there should be congruence, that really did help connect the dots a bit.
That's huge. And I think you hit the nail on the head with how it correlates to the rest of your life. Do you go to work every day and accomplish your tasks? Okay, why can't we just do that in fitness? And I know one of the biggest things is, how do I find the time to exercise? Well, you don't. You don't find the time, you make the time. You have a job, right? You make the time to go to work. You don't just not go. You get task after task. Okay, well, you have to figure out how to prioritize those tasks and which to finish first. Find the time to exercise. Get up early. You don't like to get up early? What are you doing on your lunch break? We don't need a fancy gym. Do some body weight squats, do some push ups, just do something. Get started. Do you watch TV at night? You don't have to run a mile. Get on the ground and do some 90-90s with your legs. I mean, just any kind of movement. It's all about longevity. And if you start upping your NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenics, which is basically the amount of calories you burn in a day that aren't associated with exercise. Just stand up, get a standing desk. Even if it's 30 minutes, I'm not saying stop sitting for the rest of your life, but there's just so many little things you can do to compound. I feel like I'm going to beat that word to death today. Um, everything, you will see success in the same way that you do in the rest of your life. It'll affect your relationships. It'll affect how you are in the office. Um, yeah, what you said
Yeah.
hit the nail on the head so hard.
Yeah, like so the make the time thing. Okay, so I agree on that so much. So to go a step further beyond making the time, this is what works for me. I do want to caveat that I am a little bit more of an extreme person, an extreme personality. So I don't like I work out 6 days a week. Sometimes seven, like even like a light, like incline walk, but I don't think that that is necessary. I know it's not necessary, but I choose to do it for several reasons. But that being
And if I
said,
could just interrupt real quick, I would imagine that when you started, it extreme or not, 7 days a week is probably tough. You probably learn to enjoy it over time.
Yes. And I think like now I enjoy it a lot more because I feel confident, I feel strong. Like I like the videos and the pictures that I'm taking, and that keeps me going to see how far I've come. It was not, and even today I woke up and I'm like, I feel like I might even be getting sick, like my throat hurt. I didn't really want to go, but I have conditions of like, these are the conditions in which I will not go to the gym, which really hasn't occurred yet since I started. But if I am actually sick, I am not going to go to the gym. That's insane. And if I'm injured, I am not going to go to the gym either. Other than those two things, even if I did not get good sleep, I will still go. And that's just a personal decision. And so it makes it very easy. I think what I like about that is there's no guesswork. The variable of do I feel like going is not even in that equation. The variable of did I sleep 7 hours is not in that equation. Or the variable of is it raining? Is it going to be, a bad drive to get to the gym? So none of those things even enter in my mind, which is actually easier. Like it's if you think about like I feel like we're being so nerdy, but like running through like a program and there's a script that the program has to run, a computer has to run. If you only have two criteria to look for, it's going to run a lot quicker and it's going to be a lot more efficient versus, well, are, all these 7 and 8 different variables. Should I go to the gym? So for me, it makes it a lot more simple. The other thing for me that is very critical is I need to have the same schedule like almost every day, if not every week. So what that means is that for me, I work out at 6 a.m., which is not crazy early. I know people that do 5 a.m. and I used to do 5 a.m., but I work out at 6 a.m. every day. If I had one of those schedules where on Mondays I'll do 6, on Tuesdays I'll go after work, on Wednesdays it'll be 9. That would not work for me and how my brain is wired, especially if like I think the more volatility in your workout schedule, the more potential things can come up to derail you, which is one key reason why I personally do not work out after work is that I sometimes don't know when I'm going to leave, and catch a commute. I don't know what traffic might be like. There's so many more variables I cannot control later in the day, but I can totally control. Nothing is going to interrupt a 6 a.m. workout. You know what I mean? Like there's no one's calling me. Everyone else is still kind of chill or sleeping. So for me, doing it first thing in the morning has been critical. And the same schedule, I pretty much work out 6 a.m. every day, except weekends. I'll do like a 8 or 9 a.m. class, but I do it in the morning. So I do believe that if you are someone that does struggle with consistency and having a very volatile schedule of when you're going to work out, I think will be a little bit tougher to adhere to versus something that you can repeat very well and very easily day after day.
I agree. That was the game changer for me was do my lunch break. And then once I found that sustainable time for me, then I could branch out. If something did come up that would hinder that, I would plan to go in the morning. I would do it in the afternoon. I'm sure, God forbid, you slept in past the alarm clock or whatever. You are so committed now that you can do those extra times, but you have the routine to fall back on.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I think like you bring up a good point that like you're a consistent person that like I do think that it does come down to knowing yourself a little bit. And if you're saying you go on your lunch or if something comes up, you go in the morning or you are going to fit it in one way or another. Whereas someone that might be starting could have more difficulty following through if something goes awry with their schedule. So I think like especially when you're newer on, trying to reduce those variables or interruptions that can just throw you off a little bit enough to make you or to not allow you to go and follow through. It reminds me of something that I am reading in Atomic Habits about controlling your environment. From basically controlling your environment such that you are making it hard to do bad habits and a lot easier to do good habits. I think similar to that, trying to eliminate variables that are going to potentially derail you throughout the day. Yeah.
And conversely, put things in your way that will help you stay on track. For
Yes.
example, if you're planning on working out the following day, put that set of workout clothes at the door, right? You have to either put them on or move them out of the way to get through that door. Or habit stacking, right? If you have a podcast or a new album you really want to listen to, make sure you don't listen to that unless you're on a walk or on a jog or cycling. By stacking those positive habits, you start to reinforce the habit that you want with a habit you already have.
Yes. Yes. And I completely agree on like trying to do, especially if you work out in the morning, but even if you don't work out in the morning, you still have to prepare one way or another. The night before is where like most of what I do to get ready for the gym is the night before.
Yeah,
So and now it's so subconscious for me. So like the habit stacking I kind of did is after I finish washing whatever dishes for dinner, I make my water bottle, which I put some recovery powders in there, my shaker bottle. I make that, put it in the fridge. Immediately after, I make sure I have a towel for the gym in my gym bag. So I put a new towel in my gym bag. And then the third thing is I get my outfit and put it on top of my dresser. Without fail, there's not been an instance in this last year where I didn't do all those things the day before. And now I don't even think about it. And the reason, I guess one reason why I do that is I can sleep an extra, 10 minutes in the morning. But also I think it's a subconscious signal that like, oh, I'm going tomorrow, without a doubt.
right. Yes,
Yeah.
you've activated all of the necessary steps to then in turn go. Where if you say, I think I'll go in the morning, yeah, I'll go in the morning. That's what I'll do. Then when you get up, now there's a series of steps you have to go through and accomplish before you can do the one thing you wanted to do, which was go to the gym or exercise. So by eliminating all those other hurdles the night before, not to mention it's easier to do it the night before. It's not, okay, well, I'm only limited to this much time, and if I do that, I'm only going to have this much time with the gym. You wake up, you put on your clothes, and you go. Your shaker's ready, your stuff is packed, your towel's there, you're good to go. And I think
Yes.
that's a one of the toughest things is steps like that to get started. You know, we can sit here and list a bunch of stuff, you and me, because we've gone through the rigors of trial and error to find what works for us individually. But what are some other things that you've found that I think would help, or you think would help someone that's just getting started to kind of sustain a journey? Because as we know, motivation is wonderful, but it's the consistency and discipline that really wins out.
Yeah, I think, okay, so a couple of things come to mind. Number one, we were just talking about exercise. So most of probably 90% of my workouts are in classes, in group classes led by a trainer, led by an instructor. And I actually don't see that a lot online, which makes sense because you lose control over the details of your workout when you're following someone else's workout. And I can see some drawbacks with that. But for me, the ways that I've always lost weight before, my exercise routine was always class based. So I really like that. And it could be good for beginners because it does take out any of the guesswork. Some things that I like, even though I'm not really a beginner at this point, the trainers will have us do things that I do not want to do. I hate bear crawls. I don't know what is about bear crawls. Most people hate burpees. I don't really mind burpees. The bear crawl for
You're
me every
crazy.
time. And then they have us go front, backwards, side to side. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like a 360 bear crawl. But that I bring it up because like I think that there is value in doing things that make you uncomfortable and that you don't really want to do, because maybe you don't like it because it's a weakness point for you. And the more that you do that, you will get better. I hate bear crawls less. I still hate them, but I hate them less than I did because now they're easier for me. So I do like that aspect. So if people do need some assistance to get started, that could be a good mechanism. The other thing that I like about that, which I think you can get outside of a class, but is accountability. And I say that word like loosely, but I do think that the accountability you can get in a class is if you suddenly stop showing up, someone might reach out to you and say, "Hey, I haven't seen you before, or I haven't seen you in a while. Is everything, still okay? Are things going good?" But you can create that for yourself outside of classes as well by having some either like friends that you already know that might be on a similar journey, or by having some friends online. That's been one of the best, I think, outcomes of my social media, my Instagram, for fitness, is meeting people that have shared goals. Um, yeah, I think another component of what people should try to do when they're getting started is to document. And what I mean by that is just taking pictures and videos. You do not have to post that online if you do not feel comfortable. You can just keep it on your phone. You can even hide it and put it in your hidden folder on your phone. But I think having some documentation in the beginning will help in those moments where you feel like you're not making progress. And that's been the case for me as well. Another sort of related component would be, I think it is good to make a goal. Now, it doesn't have to be weight loss or pounds lost, it can be anything. I think it is helpful when it's measurable and there are milestones along the way that you can meet. For me, that was a weight loss goal, which was the 50 pounds last year. And so I made mini goals along the way. So every 5 pounds. And I made a rough map or like schedule of when I would like to lose every 5 pounds, which was pretty flexible. I really only wanted to lose 5 pounds every 5 weeks or so, 5 to 6 weeks, which is really, I think, steady progress. But the other thing I did for every 5 pounds I lost is I rewarded myself with something. So, and these are all things that were, I did usually have a cheat meal every 5 pounds as well. But I rewarded myself with like, earrings, with a necklace, with a new workout outfit, new workout shoes. It was probably just an excuse for me to buy things I wanted. I would have probably bought anyway, but like at least it was tied to something positive. So I don't know. I think in a way, like trying to sort of gamify a little bit in a way that shouldn't be adding undue pressure, but something that makes you like, oh wow, like I wonder if I can, beat this goal that I set, or if I can even tracking. I think it's really satisfying, like visually, to see some sort of tracking progress and to see like a progress bar of where you are now versus where you were, whether that's logging your weight, whether that's logging your body fat, whether that's pictures. I think like, and I think the more data and like little checkpoints you have along the way is going to be evidence to yourself that you are making progress, you are doing something, and that should be motivation.
Yeah, you just isolated, I think, some of the best tools for those getting started. Accountability, tracking your progress, understanding the progress so that you can, in turn, enjoy the process. I think those are kind of the basics to getting started. Accountability, as you said, kind of keeps you going. And I know that part can be tough because some people, the classes is huge. If you can do the classes, I think that's a great idea. Some people, don't know what to do or who to talk to. And I think that's a perfect excuse to reach out to people like us. Like I'm more than happy to share, whether it's workouts or ideas or, hey, did you go to the gym? I'm sure you'd do the same. That's, again, I agree with you. That's one of the most rewarding parts of sharing the journey online, is seeing other people get invested. And it can be tricky too, because if you find a quote unquote workout buddy, then now all of a sudden your accountability is tied to them. So if they stop showing up, are you going to fall off? Right? So you kind of motivate each other. But I've had personally, at least when it's been you and me, buddy, one person, it hasn't been as successful because you kind of almost become codependent on not only working out, but on not working out. So you need to kind of find, whether it's a class, someone outside, that can do that. And then understanding the process, I think, is huge. I think what you said about, you know, being in an uncomfortable situation, because you have to pick when to suffer, because doing hard things is always going to yield positive results. A workout isn't going to be easy. It's not, oh, now I enjoy this right away because, I'm choosing to do it. It's going to suck. You're going to do your bear crawls, as you said. I am one of those burpee people. I hate them. But the more you do it and understand that it is going to suck, and if you just embrace it, it's such a small part of your day, you're going to regret the woes of not getting yourself healthy more so than you will regret a workout. You're not going to regret a workout. It's going to suck way less. A little piece of your day for long term success and longevity, right? At the end of the day, if you understand it's for your health, you go and work out, you come home, you look in the mirror, you see no change. You go the next day, you come home, you look in the mirror, you see no change. If you let that be the reason you're working out, you will get deterred from the process. You will fall off. But if you choose to understand that what you're doing every day is beneficial for your health, for your long-term longevity and wellness, then you will appreciate the steps you're taking and ultimately learn to enjoy it. And then down the road, you will see, which goes back to your third point for starters is to track your progress. If you go back and look at those pictures, then you'll see, oh wow, I did lose weight. I did gain muscle. My skin did clear up. I look at the bags under my eyes. I wasn't getting enough sleep. And I will still become victim of that. And I have to remind myself every day, have conversations like this, because I'll look in the mirror and go, man, I'm not making the progress I thought I was, or I'm not where I wanted to be. And then I'll look back at pictures and go, holy crap, yes, I am. Or even
Mm,
better, if you really commit to it and then you have more data, it's not just 2 months in, I'm a year and a half into this being consistent every day. And on my iPhone, on your stack, basically a reel of pictures that pops up, right? Um, I had a picture pop up and I remember the day I took it because my buddy that was in the picture with me had said, wow, you have lost a lot of weight. You're looking really good. I remember feeling really good about it. And it was one of the first pictures that I looked at after taking it and agreeing. Because when you're looking at yourself
mm,
every day, you don't necessarily feel the difference or see the difference. But I remember this particular picture going, wow, you know what? A little pat on the back, right? That self reward. And the point of the story is, I remember that feeling, and me now looking at the picture goes, wow, I've come a long way since that. Not
yes,
only, I was making progress, and then looking at that me and going, I was so proud of myself. So it is important to track because you can see how far you've come and continually reward yourself. Those small term rewards and goals are so important as long as you have that down the road, the long distance mindset that this
yes,
is good for me. And then when you
yes,
reward yourself, you also are not beating yourself up. That cheat meal isn't, I almost don't even like calling it a cheat meal, like you're cheating. It's just the meal that you've earned, right?
yeah,
Because you have to enjoy yourself. You have to be able to be healthy and walk that line, whether it's eating less processed foods, whether it's drinking less, it's different for everyone. So finding what your crutch is and not necessarily cutting it out, but same way you rehab a foot injury, rehab your dependence on whatever said crutch is, whether it's food, whether it's alcohol, whether it's TV, whether it's lack of sleep, right? And there shouldn't be a good excuse to not do something. Like you said, your parameters for not going to the gym are very small. And I think that is so important because one thing will affect the other. You're always going to have an option or an out that you want to take, right?
yes,
The not having a good night's sleep isn't a good excuse to not go to the gym. If you are going if you are going to work out in lieu of sleep, then sure, it's late. you haven't been sleeping good, get a good night's sleep. But if you didn't get a good night's sleep the night before and you go in the morning, you go on your lunch break, just do it. Maybe you don't get as hard a workout in, but you have to do it. And I think, and I'm ranting here again, but I think once you find what motivates you, keep that as keep that in the back of your head. Get all these disciplines, get all these mindsets, put them in front of you as the track, and let the motivation be the fuel, right? So you're always going to be moving down that track, whether you have enough fuel or not. You might be going a little slower, or you can speed up. For me, I know one of the biggest motivators was, and I mentioned this to you when we were first talking, but one of my best friends got leukemia and passed away 2 years ago. And his whole mindset during his decline was, I just miss being in shape. I miss being able to function. He had a 1 year old son. He just got married. He had a bone marrow transplant that was successful. And it was crazy to watch him go from this very in shape, successful individual to the brink of death to recovering to the cancer coming back and slowly going away again.
Mm,
And just the fact that he didn't have a choice
yeah.
to, sorry, I get a little emotional, but to sustain his life and be that person he wanted to be healthy for his family, for his friends. He didn't have that choice, but we have that choice. You have that choice. As you're sitting there ordering your fast food, watching your show for the 15th night in a row, and you just, I'll start tomorrow. I'll start tomorrow. Just actually do it. Just start tomorrow. Just walk for 5 minutes. Do 3 bodyweight squats. Then the next day do five. I get really passionate about it because you don't the fitness industry in and of itself is such an overindulged like selling BS platform that it confuses people and it becomes daunting and people don't want to get started. So
Yeah.
if we have anything to share, if I have anything to share, it's that you can just do the minimalist amount and build on that.
Yeah, and even the most minimal amount is a lot more than a large chunk of our society. I think like one question that I ask myself, and this works for me based on my type of personality, but I ask myself, do I want to be average? Right? And that it's a harmless question. Like maybe the answer is yes. There's nothing wrong with being okay or wanting to be average. I think a lot of people though they react to that. They don't they're like, "No, I want to be above average," you know? Like average I think sometimes has a negative connotation. But that said, I'll ask myself, do I want to be average? And my answer is no. Like I don't feel like I'm average in any way. And this might be a, arrogant thing to say or think, but this is what works for me. And so when I'm like, well, I don't want to be average, I want a like more high quality standard of life, whether that's how I live, what I eat, where I go, who I surround myself with. If I want that, I cannot have average behaviors and habits. And the average person has poor eating and health habits. So I'm like, if I don't want to be average, but this is what average people do, I need to not do that. And so for me, for someone that feels like I want to, like we all have like hopes and dreams, and I really visualize myself living in that way, I can't do what I was doing. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like kind of reversing back into it. And so I think I think there's a lot of people out there that don't want to be average, that see something grand for themselves, but then have very average, if not below average, lifestyle and habits. And it's like you are not going to be what you want to be with those habits. So I know that can be helpful for some people, is to think about like who you want to be. And that might sound corny. And it doesn't even have to be a who you want to be, but kind of what do you want your life to be like? Um,
Right.
and I will not have the life that I want doing what I was doing. And so that's just a point blank non-negotiable, cannot keep doing what I was doing.
That's well put. And I know an argument to that is, well, everyone should be comfortable and accept who they are and love themselves. And I think that it's not mutually exclusive. There's this movement that is, people that are getting healthy, or these exercise people are, yeah, the term is like fat phobic. And
Oh,
yeah, and I mean, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much, but I applaud being comfortable in your own skin. You can and you should. And that's the only way you can better yourself. Is if you hate yourself and feel less than, then you're not going to take the steps to better yourself,
yeah.
right? So be comfortable with who you are, but then prioritize your health. Be comfortable with who you are and then constantly ask yourself, as you said, what can I do to be better? Can I be better? Let's take the baby steps to do so. And I think that's just, you put it so well, is I want to be better than average, right? And if you put it in figure of numbers, I want to live longer. Do you want to live longer, or do you want to live an average amount of time? No, I want to live as long as I can.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so now that we've harped on that for so long,
Yeah.
as far as, your online community and presence, what drove you first to want to share your journey, to actually do this online versus just a personal journey?
That is such an interesting question. And I don't even, I feel like I was like doing things on like a whim in a way, and like not having this like buildup of like, oh, I wish I could do it, but I'm too shy and I had to work up the nerve. Suddenly I was like, I'm gonna make an Instagram like out of nowhere. And so this was in April, and I'd already been working out and doing all of that. And it's not like I saw anybody recording and like, oh, I want to do that. I just suddenly decided to do it. But I think what had drove me to it in part was my personal Instagram. I was following before a whole list of different fitness, mostly weight loss. I think there's like subdivisions of accounts, but mostly women that had lost weight and were now kind of doing what I'm trying to do. So I already admired that. I never thought though of oh, I wish I could have an account like theirs, but I liked what they were doing. So I think that maybe subconsciously had motivated me to do so. And this almost goes to show like of how much I wasn't even planning to do this, is I was very poorly documenting my befores or kind of where I started. I took some pictures, I took like no video. So that's why now I'm like, man, I wish I had better pictures and videos so I can make better content. But I totally was not planning for that. But I'm so glad that I did in retrospect, because like this has been the best part. And to your point earlier about like between you and I, like being able for this to be the last rodeo, if you will, is I feel like there is this difference because of all of the exposure that I'm getting from others on my platform, and it's teaching me about myself. How do I click? What are the mottos or frames of thought that are resonating most with me that I do sometimes get from other people. So anyway, again, long-winded answer, but I had no real reason to make it. I just did. What about you? What made you make your platform?
Kind of the same line of thinking. I just, after so long of being in quote unquote the last rodeo, as you just coined, um, I felt like there was so much info that I had finally come to understand, and that worked, right? Like I'm actually seeing results and getting out of the journey what I always set out to get out of it when I wanted to better myself, better my health. And I just felt like I have the answers, right? And I'm just surrounded by all the, like as I mentioned earlier, the fitness BS. And it's not a one size fits all, but again, here's some basics. Here's the groundwork. And I just wanted to be like, hey, everyone, this is it. And I'm a jokester. I like to, make jokes and be funny. And I have a background in editing. So it kind of scratched a few itches for me. I really enjoy helping people. And just to see people actually not only overcoming, stagnation or hurdles in their fitness journey, but starting a fitness journey was so rewarding once I started that I was like, I need to stick with this. This isn't just a fun whim. So getting that while being able to, make silly videos and edits in a way to convey that message was is just so much fun and dynamic and interesting to me because I just feel like there's just a dump of information, right? And you can get positive information, but you have to sift through it. I do like long form conversations. So that's why I wanted to start doing stuff like this and really breaking down, what works for us and understanding other people's motivations. Um, and what makes them tick and use that again as you said it really I could hold up the mirror and say oh how does that affect me, does that work for me, um, but then just to be able to deliver some of this info in a digestible fun format, right? Because you can go on and watch an hour long video of someone breaking down the science,
Yeah.
of an exercise or nutrition, or go and read these studies. But, it's a lot more fun to sit down and laugh and then have some information. I have a
Yeah.
reel coming out. I'm gonna post it on Monday, but I throw in some of the data of a couple of those studies that I mentioned earlier. I really, really wanted to share that because it's important, and I think that it's eye-opening, some of those statistics. So like the whole concept behind that is like I time travel to like my past self, and we have this just funny exchange, and I get a kick out of it. So, anyways,
Wow.
long-winded answers is the name of this show apparently,
I,
but
I don't want to be you having to look back through all of this and edit it.
yeah. Well, ultimately, I won't, I'm only going to edit anything that's like that we say that we wouldn't want to share. Ultimately, I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. Plus, it's again, I like editing. It's fun, and getting to really analyze what we all say here is a lot of fun. So, anyways, helping others, getting to laugh and make a digestible format of it all was compelling to me, and the feedback has been just so awesome. It's not something I ever thought I would get into. So those are kind of the reasons I started, but I think what's kept me going is the feedback, the results from the people, but then also meeting people like you. There's a community that I think is so much better than there's like this gym rat or gym bro kind of mentality in an actual gym that can be kind of hard to crack when you're getting started. Once you realize that no one cares, no one's looking at you, then it doesn't matter. But all the memes and stuff around New Year's of here comes all the people, oh no, but it's like these are all new people that are trying to better themselves. If 25% of those people stick around, then congratulations.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I think that lifting up spirit and that community is so present um, online when you really look at the accounts that are hitting home and not just a vanity, you know, account. Some of the ladies, I love the weight loss ones, but then there's also ones of girls just like
Yeah,
this shot, for
yeah,
like
yeah.
20 posts. I'm like, okay, there's another one.
So
But
let
when
me
you
another aspect of like the Instagram community. I like so I have, of course, I think we all, if you're active on your account, like you have the accounts you interact with most people that like don't even live on your side of the country, most likely. But there's been a couple. So there was one girl, hi Megs, if you're watching this. Anyway, her reel, I found her reel and she lives here and she's also a trainer and a coach and just like a whole personality. So I've like met her. I went to some of her, I went to like a free class. I went to her house. So it's like,
Oh,
oh wow, I've like
nice.
now taken this from like the DMs to in person. And then her girls that she trains are amazing and lovely and so welcoming to me. And then there's a girl that I have not yet met, but we're going on a hike on Sunday and she's in the area. So I've also like used it as a way to, and this wasn't like, I don't really go out of my way for this, but when the opportunity presents itself, someone's local, like, hey, let's meet up and like do whatever. So that's been like another nice little offshoot. But I think like what's important is that a lot for most people, happiness is built off of community. Like we find happiness in having a community, and great if you do have already friends or family that are already in your life that can relate to you. But for me, I don't have that many friends that are as, I don't know, obsessive or into like fitness and or even like needing to lose weight. And so being able to find that relatability online has felt like, you know, like kind of like a little family and people that get you and that get what you're going through. And you can maybe, you know, ask like how they overcame a challenge or vent to them in a way that your other loved ones might not be able to understand.
That is a very valid point. It is a way to express and communicate for, someone that might be getting started too, or that isn't interested in exercise and fitness. Sometimes if you're talking about it, it can be like, okay, well, I don't care about that, or you're kind of being preachy to me, where when you find this community, you can discuss it. You can say, where did you come from? How did that happen? Does that work? What are you enjoying? I mean, I've met so many people, and like all over the world. I'm one of my good buddies. His account Super Morbid Beast because he was like over 400 pounds and he's down over 100 pounds. And this guy
Oh,
is like, you think he's a 300-pound guy doing like martial art kicks above his head? It's like doing clap push-ups. It's insane. And now like we
wow.
talk all the he lives in Denmark, right? He's across the world, and now he's become just a really good buddy. And yeah, it just piggybacking and agreeing that the community is not only vast but so supportive, and I just absolutely love it.
Yes, yes. I do not plan to drop this account anytime soon.
Yeah, and it gives. I think one of the hangups I mentioned earlier was like an accountability buddy and kind of being dependent upon that. If you find someone that's getting started, who knows if it's going to last? If you find someone and get to know someone that's already invested as much as you, that accountability is there. You and me can talk back and forth and motivate each other. But then if I disappear tomorrow, you're not going to stop exercising. You have all your friends. You have Meg that you met. You have your new buddy you're going hiking with on Sunday. And at the end of the day, whatever makes you better, use it.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So we've discussed fitness, we've discussed Instagram, we've discussed it all and how we've got here. But let's talk a little bit about where we're going. Do
Mm.
you have any specific fitness goals? And we've also established we're in this for the long haul, right? We're in this for our health, um, for our longevity. But now that we've got there and we're on this track, are there any other short term or even somewhat long term goals that you have added that you're interested in attaining?
Yeah. So for this year, like you mentioned earlier, I am going to do the Spartan race. So that is much more of a, I guess, performance goal, if you will, where it's less about what my body metrics are, but more about what it can do. And I want to long term try to have things like that. Maybe not always as rigorous as Spartan, but something where it's like, okay, there's something that is an ability that I'm trying to work towards. So, like in December, I did the little running challenge. I ran a mile every day. I want to be able to keep up running a mile a day. I don't think I'm going to do it every day, but I want the ability to be able to run a mile, for example. So I just think that I think longer term want to be able to do certain things, whether they're an organized event or not. Similar to that, one of my other goals is regarding deadlifting and being able to PR with the new weight there. But I do still, because I'm not done with my weight loss journey. I am like, so I thought I was 5'1", but we remeasured me on New Year's Eve and I'm below 5'1". So they said,
Oh no, your life's a
I'm
lie.
barely so I bring that up because and I don't like really get caught up in weight, but I do think that like there's a range I would like to be in. Because for my height, being a woman, I'm literally supposed to be like 120 pounds, which is laughable for me. I don't know what age I was 120 pounds, but it was probably when I was a child. Anyway, so I'm not aspiring to be in like the range I'm supposed to be, but I am still overweight for kind of where I want to be with like my height and my body. So because of that, I do still have weight loss goals for this year. Related to that, I haven't set goals around this before, but I do have a body fat percentage goal as well. And I did do a DEXA scan back in September, and I have one coming up again this month to help kind of guide and give me that data better than like a scale can do. So I do have short-term goals. I think longer term beyond that, I don't know. I'm kind of in between the philosophy of do I want to have very specific goals to chase, or am I more concerned about just keeping up the habits? And my goal are the habits, right?
Yes.
And so I'm still not sure where I'm going to fall on that, but I think the beauty is that you don't always have to decide things like in the moment. I have my current year goals. I'm going to see how that goes and how I feel. And then based on what is speaking to me, if I want to chase other percentage goals, like maybe push myself to a lower body fat percentage, I'll just reevaluate at that point. But I think it kind of comes back to what we talked about earlier, where I don't want my whole life to be so revolved around fitness where it's all I think about. And if chasing
Yep.
some of these more extreme goals is going to lead to that, I probably will drop that a little bit and just focus more so on like the habits and the consistency around going to the gym and eating well.
Yeah. And that's what's important at the end of the day. That's kind of where I'm at too. There's not my goals aren't this by this date or that by that date. It's kind of more ability and functionality driven. Like my goal is to increase my mobility as much as possible, and that's not a I'm going to hit a PR by this date. It's a never ending, right? Because I have a little injury in my elbow. I have some tendonitis, and it was from overuse and not focusing on training my joints, my tendons, my ligaments, because some of those movements aren't quote unquote sexy, if you will, right? And they're slow and meticulous, and a lot of this. And when I work out, if I'm not sweating and like, oh, I got the most out of that workout, I feel like I shorted myself, and I'm trying to
Mm,
rewire that thinking, right? Because the more I train my rotator cuffs and my tendons, then the more I'll be able to perform in those more rigorous exercises when I do it. Because your muscles develop way quicker than your tendons do, so you can build them up, and all of a sudden you're straining and overusing all those
mm,
small pieces. So,
yeah.
so stuff like that, and I'm trying to be able to do a pistol squat by the end of the
Oh,
year.
I
So
saw that.
yeah, so I it was one that I just assumed I could do because I mean, I work out my legs a lot and I have pretty good range of motion. And then I was looking up a new exercise and I was like, I'm going to incorporate pistol squats. And I just can't do it. I can't even kind of do it. So I've been training it
I
for a
feel like
couple
you were
months.
doing it. Were you not doing it?
So I was doing the movement, but a real pistol squat is that was elevated so that I can start getting the motion. But if I was standing and then go all the way down with my other foot way out in front of me, where basically
Oh,
picture doing a squat, full squat, but one leg's out in front of you.
Okay, so a real pistol squat is on like flat ground, not elevated like you're doing it.
Yes.
Oh, I see, I see.
So I'm
Wow.
working
Okay, that
up to be able to do that.
got it.
So, and I'm seeing the progress, but again, that's like months, and so that's a
Yeah.
fun thing to do. It's like if that was all I was doing, then I'd feel like I'm not getting anywhere. But that's just a fun thing to, if by the end of the year I got it, then how about that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's kind of I think it's fun. Like I'm enjoying right now at this time having a mixture of those goals of like more metrics. I'm still, not done and all of that. But then also I feel like when you can do a thing, whether it's like the pistol squat or for me, my race or the deadlift, that it's a celebration of like what your body can do. And it is kind of like instant gratification in that moment when you finally do the thing or at least finish doing the thing. So I think having a balance of that for me right now seems like a good recipe, but I always like I do want to leave the door open, and I think this is very indicative of my whole journey is that like I might feel differently in a year about what I value and what I want to be able to do. Maybe I won't care about PRing at that point. Maybe Spartan race will be one and done. Maybe I won't care really about like my weight or my weight range that I want to be in might be higher than what it is right now. And I think we're all dynamic. I think like there's a lot of different ways to be like healthy in the way that you look. I mean, there's an end to that, to be
Yeah,
clear. But I think that like there's different paths to kind of go about, and I'm just gonna kind of unfold and go one step at a time. But I think ultimately, if like the whole goal is to be healthy, like that is the end all goal. So
100%. And I mean, I think there's a huge connection too between um, your physical health and your mental health. I think a lot of the benefits that I've at least personally seen as a side effect, if you will, has really made me realize that they are so intricately connected, um, that you can kind of utilize both to affect the other. Once I realized that I'm getting a lot of like more mental clarity from exercise, I then in turn kind of use that and go, okay, well, now I'm forgetting the term, but where you kind of focus on the muscle that you're exercising as a
mm,
way
I
to like isolate it. What was that?
mm, yeah, isolate. That's all
I
I can think of.
Yeah, it's like a mental and I'm gonna drive myself crazy, but
Oh, my, is it like the mind
mindfulness or like
muscle to mind connection?
yeah, yeah. We're like if you were say you're doing a bicep curl, you instead of just doing the curl, you are thinking about your biceps. You're feeling the actual tension and focusing on it, and then it really in turn helps you isolate. So my
Yeah.
point is just I've really really come to appreciate the connection of your mental health along with the physical health.
Yes. Yep. I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I don't know. I think like the other like aspect in terms of goals is like how I show up online, because this space, the Instagram space, and showing this stuff on Instagram is very new for me that I haven't done in prior attempts before, prior weight loss journeys. And so I do sometimes have goals around there, like if I want to build my account, do I really care about partnerships? Like what kind of things, like am I really trying to help people? Because right now, although I will kind of try to share some tips or things that I think about, I'm not really actively trying to help people. It's not my intent to be a coach or anything like that. And I think that's a great path, but I'm not trying to do that right now. So it's like, like how do I want to use what I'm doing for others, if at all,
Yeah.
is really tricky.
Yeah, I mean, you're still figuring it out. Like you said, when you started, it wasn't like, all right, starting tomorrow, I'm going to go help people lose weight. You know,
Yeah.
it was a byproduct. And I think that's important because, again, a lot of stuff is shoving things down people's throat. So I think people just being able to watch you achieve your goals and what you're setting out for yourself and the progress you're making is just in and of itself helpful and teaching people things where you're not like,
Mm.
hey, you try this and do that. You're like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Let's see what happens. And it's clearly working.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's kind of the strategy of like, this is what I do. But I don't feel comfortable and neither am I qualified to make any recommendations for to other people. But yeah, like you said, just showing up with how you're living and all of that does go a long way for, myself and for you too, I'm sure.
Big time.
Um, so we'll see. We'll see what
Yes.
happens in 2024,
New year, new us, as they say.
as they say.
Yes. Well, we've been at it for a good hour and a half, so I just want to say thanks again so much for doing this, and just your transparency and your genuineness. And hopefully, people out there get something out of this. This will be available on YouTube. We'll drop the link below or above or wherever it is this edit is showing up. Follow us both. That is also available, as you can see here. Yeah, and thanks again.
Thank you. This is awesome.
Woohoo!